Good morning. Paul was concerned about evangelism. And in 1 Corinthians 9:22, there's a text that shows his desire to see people come to faith in Christ and how that led him to connect with people within particular cultural constructs. So whether they were a Jew or whether they were a Gentile. Remember, in the first century, you had that was a big issue. Jew and Gentile coming together, as Paul wrote in Ephesians 2, one new man being made in Christ. Jew, Gentile coming together in one body. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 9, and he says the following: "For though I'm free from all, I've made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. To the Jews I became as a Jew in order to win Jews. To those under the law, I became as one under the law, though not being myself under the law, that I might win those under the law." In other words, I went ahead and followed different customs, and I enculturated in that way in the first century Jewish cultural context. Not that I was obligated to keep laws, but I was happy to keep certain laws if it meant that I could speak about Christ and not throw away my witness because of their particular convictions, is what Paul is saying. To those outside the law, I became as one outside the law, not being outside the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I might win those outside the law. When I'm ministering to Gentiles, he's saying, I didn't act as one who was bound by the law, because I'm not bound by the law. I felt free in that context. I wanted to enculturate and connect appropriate to their gentilic status. Verse 22, "To the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. I've become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some." So maybe he would eat meat sacrificed to idols, or he wouldn't eat meat sacrificed to idols, and he would observe a day and not observe a day. And the point being that Paul said, I'm connecting to these cultures. Now, to become all things to all men so you might win some doesn't mean you throw away your convictions. It doesn't mean that you change your morals. It doesn't mean that you enter into contexts of temptation and testing where your faith could be compromised because you're trying to win people for Christ. It doesn't mean you walk into a strip club to share the gospel because as a man you walk into that context and you're going to stare down lust because you're going to win those people. It doesn't mean if you have a history of alcohol struggles that you go into the bar to share with people when you might be tempted to fall. You govern yourself with wisdom. I remember years ago being asked by some students at a college whether it was okay to smoke weed with their friends because they were becoming all things to all men so that they might win some. That is not what Paul's saying. He's not saying enter into compromising situations so that you might win people. He's saying here, I didn't let their culture become a stumbling block for me to share the faith on issues that were not bumping up against weakness, temptation, or any immorality. I was happy to enter in and be as one of them in that way, provided it wasn't a compromise, right, of his own moral standing, his own weakness in certain ways. So we don't just get to pluck the verse out. We have to keep it in the context that Paul uses it. And it is a good verse about evangelism. And it is a good verse about flexibility and malleability, but in the right context. May the Lord bless you today and help us all as we seek to share our faith.